The number of incidents of domestic abuse where the victim is male has risen across Wales in the last 5 years. Figures obtained by ITV News show the biggest increase was in North Wales. Experts say it's because more men feel confident about reporting problems, but say there's still a long way to go. Rob Osborne has more.
As a woman, you are most at risk of being a victim of domestic violence. But that isn't always the full story. This man was involved in domestic abuse, not as the abuser, but as the abused.
When it's happening on a daily or a 3 times a week basis, I think it kind of goes beyond the realms of what you should be expected to deal with.
He suffered years of abuse from his wife, affecting him and their children. He was spat at, assaulted, objects thrown at him. We've called this man James. The name isn't his, but the story is.
After a while, it just became rather unnerving. If you came into the room, you were never quite sure what you were coming into. If I came back from work, I was never quite sure whether things were going to be nice and smooth. It was almost like we were a dysfunctional family.
James eventually called the police, and figures obtained by ITV News show more and more people are doing the same. In 2013, there were over 8,000 cases reported. Across Wales, the numbers were up on 2008, but the biggest rise was in the North Wales police area, which saw a jump of 48%. The Dean Project offers support around Wales. 2013 was their busiest ever year, and 2014 has shown no let-up.
Lots of men don't recognise that they're in an abusive relationship, or there's violence, or they're at risk. That's very common. We see very controlling behaviour, very abusive behaviour, which doesn't necessarily involve violence. We need to make sure we're sending out the right message here. It's not just about cuts and bruises.
Messages are important, but some say the wrong message is being sent out by the Welsh Government in a proposed new law. It's called the Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Bill, but some campaigners say it's sexist. But that's a criticism dismissed by the minister in charge.
Our legislation, again, is both. It's ending violence against women, it's domestic abuse, which is for both, and sexual violence, which again is both men and women. So we do recognise that, but as I say, in Wales, as in the rest of the world, it is women and girls who are predominantly affected.
But so are victims like James. Despite the number of people telling police going up, he fears most men just won't come forward.
Well, joining me in the studio is Tony Stott, a men's rights campaigner from the charity Healing Men, which is one of the organisations that's been critical of the Welsh Government's Ending Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Bill. Mr Stott, why are you critical of a bill that really at its heart is designed to tackle the issue of violence? It seems odd that you have a problem with this. Explain why.
I don't have a problem with ending violence. Certainly I want to see, like every right-minded person, an end to all violence. And the issues we have with it is the way it discriminates both in favour of women and against men.
And this is the part of it because the bill, the title of the bill, it's violence against women.
Well, it's not just the title of it. Obviously, it's the title in part, but it's not just the title of it. It's the basic concepts that lie behind the legislation that's being proposed by the Welsh Government.
We saw from the Minister in the report there saying that actually men who are the victims, you know, this is a high priority too, and part of the bill, you know, the domestic violence and the sexual violence element of it as well does apply to men as well. Do you accept that she does have a point with that it is all-encompassing to some degree?
No, I don't, actually. The bill actually started out as the Domestic Abuse Wales Bill. It was then changed into the Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse, Sexual Violence Bill. And if it had been Domestic Abuse Bill and it addressed the issues that men face and addressed the issues that women face, we would have total support.
What do you make of the argument, and statistics are used a lot in this conversation, the Minister there saying the fact is that in Wales, the UK, the world, the statistics prove that women are affected by domestic violence far more than men. Do you agree with that at least?
No.
You don't actually believe that's the case?
Well, it's not a question of believing it in a way, it's a question of being able to demonstrate it. And there's a mountain of international studies that actually can contradict that statement.
I think, and the point that organisations like yours and you would give actually is that, you know, there's a much broader issue to this, the whole issue of violence against men, the fact that many men just won't report it. What's behind that, and how do we tackle that? Because that's a big problem, isn't it? It is
a huge problem, and that's part of the issue with the bill as well. But how do we address that? I'd like to say I thought the piece with James was absolutely brilliant and brought out a lot of issues. Because
this was the person we saw in that report speaking out about it. Because that's the thing, isn't it? It's a rare thing for men to talk about what's happened to them. You know, and traditionally that's always been the issue, but so much has changed in the last 50, 100 years in terms of attitudes in society. But there's still this thing that men who are the victim of violence from a partner just feel that they can't tell anyone about it, that it's their fault.
Well, it starts right at the very beginning from being aware. Many men are not aware that they are being abused. And full credit to the women's movement. There's a huge body of emphasis encouraging women to come forward. And of course that's absent. It just doesn't apply to men.
And the point is, it's doing what we're doing now. It's talking about it, and there have been, you know, very high-profile things raised in, for example, soap operas. Coronation Street had a recent storyline involving a male victim of abuse by his female partner. Does that kind of thing, getting it out there into kind of modern popular culture, people watching the TV, help you in your campaign?
Absolutely. I mean, there was an overwhelming roar of approval from many of the people that I meet that at last this is being seen. You know, we can do all the things that we can do, but unless there is some kind of popular perception that this is an issue, then nothing is going to happen, nothing's going to change.
Well, as you say, it's very important talking about it. We'd like to thank you for talking to us about the issue today. Thank you very much.